Hi, I'm Jonathan Falwell, pastor of Thomas Road Baptist Church in Lynchburg, Virginia, and also heading up the Liberty Church Network. And I have a passion for the local church. I believe firmly that the local church is God's instrument, God's plan, God's purpose of reaching the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I believe the only hope for the world is when the local church is adequately and efficiently preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. I believe that with all my heart, which is why it is so important. It's so desperate for people to go out and to plant new churches, to revitalize churches that are in decline, to breathe new life into churches that desperately need to see the power of God moving and equipping and changing our world. And one challenge when you go into a church, one thing that we want to talk about here today is the idea of when we plant a church or when we're stepping into a church that maybe needs some revitalization, a church that needs new life, new breath breathed into it, is engaging or activating the people that are part of that church, or activating people who will become part of a brand new church plant, of getting them to take ownership, of getting them to kind of lead, to step out of their comfort zone and to begin to do what is so desperately needed for churches to accomplish what it is that God intends for us to accomplish. If we're going to change the world, man, it's got to be a team effort. One person can't do it. So often I've seen church planters who will go into a city, and maybe just the church planter and the spouse, and they'll go into a city and they'll begin kind of building relationships, begin talking with people, and begin to try to put together that core team. And then they launch out, they start those weekly meetings. And what ends up happening so often is that, it's just the couple doing all the work, and they're carrying all the load, they're carrying all the baggage, and they've got a few people that are coming along with them. But when it comes right down to it, not a lot happens very quickly, because when two people are trying to do all the work, it doesn't seem like things move as fast as they possibly can. So what's the answer to that? What's the solution to that? The solution to that is building a team who all understand that it's all of our responsibility, it's all of our duty to encourage, to strengthen, to grow, and to impact the city when churches are planted, churches revitalized. And so today what I want to talk about is how to activate, how to truly get that group of people to not just simply come and to attend, but to get that group passionate to serve, to impact, and to change their world by being the Christ followers that God intended for them to be. And in order for us to actually get them to that place, what we have to do is we have to be aware of the things, the hurdles, the obstacles that keep them from getting to that place. And in my estimation, there's really only kind of four ideas, four concepts really that keep people from really engaging, stepping out of their comfort zone, stepping out of that place where God wants them to move out of to begin to impact. It's just four kind of fears, I guess you will. And those first four fears I just want to share with you. The first one is just simply this, is the idea that I can't do it. The idea that they don't have the ability. A lot of people, when you try to engage them, try to activate them into service, man, they just believe, I don't have what it takes. I can't get up there and do what the pastor does. I can't get up there and lead people. I don't know what to say. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to move people, to get people to get passionate about things. I just can't do it. And so that first fear is, man, I can't do it. The second fear is this, I shouldn't do it. And that's the idea of, I'm not willing to step out of my comfort zone because I'm afraid of what people might think of me. I'm afraid of what they might believe about me when they see me trying to, step into this role, of leadership, step into this role of being active in a church plant, active in serving in ministry. That the idea of, man, will people laugh at me? Will my friends make fun of me? Will they take me seriously? Will they follow me? And so you've got the fear of I can't do it, and the fear of I shouldn't do it. And the third fear is one that kind of goes right along with that, or right along the idea behind that is just simply this, is that if I do it, I'm going to fail. It's that fear of failure. That if I try to do something, outside of my comfort zone, if I try to step out of that place where I feel safe, I'll fall flat on my face. And of course, that fourth fear, that fourth challenge that we must get them to get moved past, that obstacle they've got to move past, is just simply this, I'm not worthy to do it. And this is where they look back at their past, they look back at the baggage, they look back at sin, they look at a lifestyle maybe in their past that they believe disqualifies them from leadership. And so all four of these, whether maybe one comes into play or maybe two, or in a lot of cases I've seen all four play a role in keeping people from being activated in serving in ministry. We've got to get them past that. We've got to get them to understand that, yes, we all don't really have what it takes to pull this off. And yes, we all might be mocked for what we do. And yes, certainly we come to a place where we might fail. And fourth, man, we all, at Romans 3:23, we're all sinners who've fallen short of the glory of God. We've all blown it over and over and over again. What we have to do is get people to recognize and to understand and to accept that it's okay. It's okay that we're not perfect. It's okay that we've blown it. It's okay that we might fail. It's okay that people might laugh at us. It's okay that we may not have all the abilities and all the talents to be able to do what it is that God has called us to do. And what happens is that we as church leaders, as pastors, have got to let people see that it's okay, but we also got to let them see that it's not only okay, it's actually good. Because what happens is when people think they do have what it takes, when people think they do have the ability, when they think that they really have what it takes, that they're smart and they're good leaders and they're good talkers and all those kinds of things, and they're not have any fear of failure, they feel like, man, they're better than other people, what ends up happening is that they try to lead and they try to do in their own power in every single time that people step into a church setting, step into ministry, whether it's a church plant or whether it's a revitalization, every time they try to do it in their own power, I can guarantee you God will not honor or bless it. And so 2 Corinthians chapter 3 tells us our sufficiency is not of ourselves. Our sufficiency is of Christ. In other words, we have to get to the place where we recognize, yes, I don't have what it takes. Yes, I don't know where to go. Yes, I don't know what to do. Yes, I might fail. Yes, I have a bad past. But greater is He that is in me than he that is in the world. We have to get our people to recognize that. One of the greatest stories in the scriptures that underscore what we're talking about, kind of help us to see what it is that we're talking about, is from John chapter 21. In John chapter 21, the story is, where Peter is kind of being restored. It's after Jesus was arrested in the garden, after he was tried before Caiaphas and Pontius Pilate, after, of course, he was crucified, and after he rose again. If you go back to those early moments before all of that took place, Jesus told Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. You're going to deny who I am 3 times. And of course, Peter said, there's no way, I'm not going to do that. Not going to happen. Man, I love you and I serve you and nothing could ever, I would rather die first. And of course, you know the rest of the story. Peter, when he was there in the courtyard outside of where Jesus was being tried, you know what he did. He denied Christ 3 times before the night was even over. And so after Jesus rose from the grave, he appeared to the disciples. He appeared once that morning, once the next week, and then he had already told them, go ahead to Galilee. And in John chapter 21, they're in Galilee. The disciples are there, and Peter says, man, I'm going fishing. And he goes out, he's out there fishing, not catching anything. Jesus shows up on the shoreline, and he says, hey, cast the nets down on the other side. So they do that, and of course, they caught fish so much that the nets broke. And then when Peter saw who it was, recognized that it was Jesus that was standing on the seashore, and he pulled a Forrest Gump, and he jumped off the boat, didn't even wait for it to get back to shore. He swam to shore to get to Jesus. He got there, and then the conversation took place where Jesus said, do you love me, Peter? Peter said, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And then he said, well, feed my sheep. And then he asked him again, Peter, do you really love me? And Peter said, yes, I love you, Jesus. You know that I love you. And he said, then feed my sheep. And then the 3rd time, Jesus said, Peter, no, seriously, do you really love me? Peter said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And then once more, Jesus said, feed my sheep. Now, of course, a lot of people use that passage to talk about the different usages of the word love, and they talk about the idea there of the different Greek language there, and that's not really what I'm focusing on. What I'm focusing on here is the fact that after Peter had denied Christ 3 times, and after Peter had every reason to believe in the world that he did not have what it took to continue to serve God, after he believed that he had disqualified himself from service and being used of God, Jesus looked at him and said, Peter, if you really do love me, then go out there and do exactly what it is that I called you to do in the first place. Back in Luke chapter 5, when Jesus was walking on the seashore, and he ran into Peter and the others, and he said, follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. And instantly Peter forsook all, dropped it all, and followed after Christ. Now, after all this had taken place, after Peter had denied Christ, once again Jesus reminded him of that original calling. And so Jesus restored him. Jesus empowered him. Jesus reminded him of his call. And once again, Jesus reminded Peter and reminds each and every one of us that it doesn't matter who we are and it doesn't matter what we've done. It doesn't matter how many times we've blown it, that our God can use anybody to change the world. That's the message that we have to get across to the people who sit in our rooms, who sit in our worship services, who are taking part in our church plants. That's the message that we've got to convey to them, is that it doesn't matter what your past looks like. It doesn't matter how many times you've blown it. It doesn't matter how weak you might feel. It doesn't matter how inadequate you might believe that you are. Our God can use anyone. And when you can activate your people, when you can get your people to believe that, to be passionate about that, to embrace that truth that comes directly from God's word, when you get them there, what will happen is you will unleash a sleeping giant in your community, in your city, in your church, and you will turn your city upside down with the gospel of Jesus Christ. I love what it says in Acts chapter 17 when Paul and Silas arrived in Thessalonica. And all the religious leaders of the day were upset because they were there. And they were mad because of all the things that Paul was doing. And so they went out to Jason's house to try to find them. And they went to and wanted to gather them up and punish them because they kept preaching this message of the gospel. But I love what it says when even those who were against the message that Paul was preaching, when they came out and they said, "These who have turned the world upside down have come here too." Well, listen, if we can get our people to recognize that our God can restore us, that our God can empower us, that our God can renew that calling on our lives, that he can use us no matter what, that he can use anyone for his purposes. When we get that message across to the people who will launch our churches with us, who will engage in ministry in our revitalizations, who will sit in the rooms and worship with us, when we get our people to believe that, what will end up being said of us in our communities, in our cities, even from the people who may not agree with what we say and what we do and what we preach, is that they will say of us, "These who have turned the world upside down." Be passionate, because the gospel trumps everything. And when you get your people to believe that, there is no stopping it.